Imagine a war so devastating that it tore through the very fabric of time itself. Two ancient civilizations, locked in an endless conflict spanning galaxies, accidentally discover technology that bends time and space. As they weaponize this power, history becomes their battlefield. Dinosaurs, medieval kingdoms, future megacities, all become pawns in a cosmic game where every moment in history is at stake. The fate of existence hangs by a thread as warriors from different eras collide in spectacular temporal battles. But what if the true enemy isn't across the battlefield, but within time itself? Subscribe now to witness the ultimate battle through eternity. The galaxy had known peace for millennia until the VRYN and the Kalethon discovered each other's existence. These two advanced civilizations, separated by vast distances of space, quickly found themselves in bitter conflict over resources and territory. Their technologies were remarkably similar yet fundamentally opposed. The VRYN relied on crystalline energy matrices while the Kalethon mastered plasma-based systems. The initial skirmishes escalated into full-scale warfare that spread across star systems, consuming everything in its path. Entire planets became battlegrounds, their atmospheres poisoned by weapons fire, their surfaces scarred by orbital bombardments. The war raged for centuries, neither side able to gain a decisive advantage despite their technological prowess. It was during one particularly devastating engagement above a dying red giant star that both factions made a discovery that would change everything. Deep within the star's gravitational well, scientists from both sides detected anomalous readings suggesting localized temporal distortions. This revelation sparked an unprecedented arms race, not for more powerful weapons, but for mastery over time itself. Research facilities sprung up across both empires, consuming resources at an alarming rate as physicists and engineers worked feverishly to understand and harness this newfound phenomenon. Little did they know that their pursuit would unleash consequences far beyond their comprehension, setting in motion events that would ripple through eternity. The breakthrough came simultaneously in two distant sectors of space. Both the VRYN and Kalethon researchers independently developed crude temporal manipulation devices capable of creating microsecond-long windows into the past. The initial tests were disastrous, often resulting in catastrophic equipment failures or minor reality disruptions that could erase entire research teams from existence. Yet these setbacks only fueled their determination. Over decades of experimentation, the technology evolved from simple observation tools to sophisticated portals capable of transporting matter through time. The first successful temporal incursion involved sending a small probe just 5 minutes into the past, but within months, they achieved jumps spanning years and eventually centuries. The implications were staggering. Entire armies could be deployed at crucial historical junctures, altering the course of civilizations to create advantageous conditions for their respective empires. However, the true nature of these temporal portals remained poorly understood. Each activation created ripples in the space-time continuum, subtle disturbances that began accumulating like cracks in a dam. The physicists warned of potential repercussions, but their warnings went unheeded in the face of such military potential. Battle strategies shifted from conventional warfare to complex temporal operations, where victory depended on precise timing and placement throughout history's timeline. The first historical intervention started small, preventing diplomatic agreements between rival species, sabotaging technological advancements that might threaten their supremacy. But as confidence grew, so did the scale of their manipulations. The first major temporal campaign targeted Earth's ancient civilizations, though neither empire understood the planet's significance at the time. The VRYN established a covert base in prehistoric Africa, subtly influencing early human development by introducing advanced concepts through carefully orchestrated encounters. Meanwhile, the Kalethon focused on the rise of the Egyptian civilization, embedding their agents as gods among the population. The resulting interference created bizarre historical anomalies: pyramids built with impossible precision, cave paintings depicting spacecraft, and mythologies filled with descriptions of armored beings descending from the heavens. As both factions pushed further into Earth's past, the temporal ripples intensified. Ancient ecosystems began showing signs of contamination from future species, while technological artifacts appeared out of sequence with their supposed era of origin. The situation reached a crisis point when both sides attempted large-scale military deployments during World War II. The VRYN sought to accelerate Allied technological development, while the Kalethon aimed to prolong the conflict. The resulting temporal shockwave nearly collapsed the entire 20th century, forcing both empires to temporarily withdraw their operations. This incident marked a turning point in their understanding of temporal mechanics. They realized that certain historical nodes were more sensitive than others, and tampering with them could have catastrophic consequences for the entire timeline. Yet instead of exercising caution, both sides doubled down on their efforts, developing even more sophisticated methods of temporal warfare while racing to identify and secure these critical historical nexus points. As the temporal war escalated, both the VRYN and Kalethon encountered unexpected resistance from an entirely new front, time itself. The accumulated temporal distortions began manifesting as physical phenomena, creating areas where different eras overlapped in surreal combinations. Medieval knights found themselves battling alongside futuristic soldiers against dinosaurs armed with laser rifles. These temporal anomalies grew more frequent and intense, threatening to consume entire regions of space-time. Scientists from both sides finally acknowledged what they had long suspected: their actions were destabilizing the fundamental structure of reality. Yet political pressures prevented them from halting their operations. Instead, they developed increasingly desperate measures to contain the damage while continuing their war efforts. Specialized units were created to repair temporal fractures, using advanced technology to stitch together fragments of broken timelines. These chronostabilization teams operated under extreme conditions, often facing hostile forces from multiple time periods simultaneously. The psychological toll was immense, as operatives struggled to maintain their sense of identity amidst constantly shifting realities. Some began reporting strange phenomena, memories that didn't belong to them, knowledge of events that hadn't happened yet, or sudden shifts in their own personal histories. The line between cause and effect blurred, creating situations where effects could precede their causes, leading to paradoxes that defied logical explanation. Despite these challenges, both empires continued their relentless pursuit of temporal dominance, driven by a combination of desperation and hubris that blinded them to the growing instability of the universe itself. The discovery of primitive temporal signatures in Earth's deep past triggered a massive escalation in both empires' operations. Independent archaeological teams from both factions uncovered evidence of earlier, unknown civilizations that had somehow mastered basic time travel thousands of years before recorded history. These findings suggested that humanity's evolution had been influenced by temporal forces far older than either the VRYN or Kalethon. The revelation sparked a frantic race to uncover these ancient secrets, with both sides deploying extensive excavation teams across Earth's surface and conducting deep scans of the planet's crust. The competition turned deadly when several key sites began exhibiting dangerous temporal instabilities, creating localized time loops and reality distortions that threatened to consume entire regions. Ancient ruins revealed complex machinery bearing no resemblance to either empire's technology, hinting at a third player in the temporal game. These discoveries forced both sides to reconsider their strategies, as they realized they might be fighting over scraps while missing the larger picture. The VRYN established a secret research division dedicated to reverse engineering these ancient artifacts, while the Kalethon focused on decoding the cryptic symbols and mathematical patterns found throughout the ruins. As they delved deeper into these mysteries, both factions began experiencing increasingly severe side effects from their prolonged exposure to temporal anomalies. Operatives reported waking up in different bodies, finding themselves married to strangers, or possessing skills they had never learned. The very fabric of their personal realities was unraveling, yet neither side could afford to withdraw from the field without conceding a potentially decisive advantage to their enemy. The escalating temporal instability reached a critical threshold when both empires simultaneously discovered a massive temporal artifact buried beneath Antarctica's ice sheets. The object, later designated as the Kronos Core, pulsed with energy that defied all known physics. Its presence explained many of Earth's historical anomalies, while raising even more questions about the planet's true significance in the grand scheme of temporal mechanics. Initial attempts to study the artifact resulted in widespread temporal displacement among research personnel, with some individuals appearing centuries away from their original positions in time. The VRYN and Kalethon established competing research facilities around the site, engaging in a tense standoff that occasionally erupted into violent skirmishes fought across multiple time periods simultaneously. As they probed deeper into the Kronos Core's mysteries, both sides began to suspect that Earth itself might be an artificially constructed temporal nexus point, deliberately placed in the galaxy to serve as a fail-safe mechanism against excessive temporal manipulation. This theory gained credence when researchers discovered that the planet's geological features contained embedded temporal stabilizers, natural formations that resonated with harmonic frequencies, keeping local time flow relatively stable despite the chaos unfolding above. The realization that they might be fighting over a galactic safeguard rather than a strategic resource forced both empires to reconsider their entire approach to temporal warfare. Yet the temptation to harness the Kronos core's power proved too great, leading to increasingly reckless experiments that threatened to tear apart the entire solar system's temporal framework. The situation grew more complicated when independent researchers from both sides began secretly collaborating, sharing data about the artifact's properties and the mysterious civilization that had created it. The collaboration between rogue scientists from both empires led to an unprecedented discovery. The Kronos core wasn't just a passive temporal stabilizer, but an active intelligence monitoring and maintaining the integrity of time itself. This revelation came at a terrible cost, as the core responded to their invasive studies by triggering a series of cascading temporal failures across Earth's history. Entire civilizations vanished overnight, replaced by completely different cultures with no memory of what had come before. The VRYNN and Kale-Thun command structures found themselves splintered across multiple divergent timelines, each version believing theirs was the primary reality. The core's awakening forced both empires to confront the possibility that their entire conflict had been manipulated by forces beyond their understanding. Historical records began rewriting themselves spontaneously, creating alternate versions of past events that sometimes contradicted current realities. Researchers witnessed firsthand how their previous interventions had created metastable timelines teetering on the edge of collapse. The situation reached a breaking point when the core initiated what appeared to be a systematic purge of temporal anomalies, targeting both empires' historical strongholds with surgical precision. Entire star systems blinked out of existence as their timelines unraveled, replaced by radically different configurations that maintained better temporal stability. This cleansing process spared Earth itself, reinforcing the theory that the planet served as a critical node in the galaxy's temporal network. Both empires faced a stark choice: continue their war and risk complete annihilation, or attempt to negotiate a ceasefire while they still possessed coherent command structures. The decision was complicated by the fact that communications between different timeline fragments became increasingly unreliable, making coordinated action nearly impossible. In a desperate bid to prevent total temporal collapse, representatives from both empires managed to establish a tenuous truce at the Kronos core site. The negotiations took place in a specially constructed temporal buffer zone that maintained a stable present moment despite the chaos unfolding around them. As both sides shared their research findings, they discovered that their interpretations of temporal mechanics had been fundamentally flawed. The core's influence extended far beyond Earth, affecting the entire galaxy's temporal fabric through a network of quantum-entangled particles that acted as natural temporal regulators. This revelation forced them to reevaluate their entire understanding of galactic history. Evidence mounted that numerous ancient civilizations had risen and fallen due to their inability to properly manage temporal technology. The VRYNN and Kale-Thun weren't the first to stumble upon this dangerous knowledge. They were merely the latest in a long line of species that had nearly destroyed themselves through temporal warfare. The core's awakening had triggered a galaxy-wide reset, pruning unstable timelines and restoring more stable configurations. Both empires watched in horror as their homeworlds underwent radical transformations, their histories rewritten to eliminate the most destructive aspects of their conflicts. The process was agonizingly slow, with some regions experiencing rapid temporal shifts while others remained stubbornly resistant to change. Researchers theorized that these resistant areas corresponded to locations where both empires had invested heavily in temporal infrastructure, creating deeply entrenched anomalies that the core struggled to resolve. This insight led to a controversial proposal. Both sides would need to systematically dismantle their temporal warfare capabilities to allow the core to complete its stabilization process. The joint operation to dismantle temporal infrastructure proved far more challenging than anticipated. Decades of temporal warfare had created a tangled web of overlapping timelines and nested causality loops that resisted simple resolution. Specialized teams from both empires worked side by side, carefully mapping the complex interactions between different temporal nodes before attempting any modifications. The process required them to operate simultaneously across multiple time periods, coordinating their actions through quantum-entangled communication devices that barely functioned in the distorted temporal environment. Each successful operation revealed new layers of complexity, as removing one temporal anchor often caused previously hidden influences to surface. The work took a severe toll on the operatives, who found their memories constantly shifting as historical events realigned themselves. Some developed a form of temporal dysphoria, struggling to maintain a consistent sense of self as their personal histories rewrote themselves daily. The psychological strain led to the development of specialized support protocols, including memory anchors and temporal identity reinforcement techniques. Despite these challenges, progress was undeniable. Regions that had suffered from severe temporal instability began stabilizing, with historical records aligning more closely with observable reality. The positive feedback loop accelerated the core's restoration efforts, allowing it to reach deeper into the galaxy's temporal structure. However, this success came at a price. Both empires were forced to abandon vast swaths of territory that had become too temporally compromised to salvage. Entire colonies disappeared from existence as their supporting timelines collapsed, replaced by alternative histories that better supported temporal stability. The experience forced both civilizations to confront difficult questions about sacrifice and survival, as they weighed the value of individual lives against the greater good of preserving galactic history. As the temporal stabilization efforts progressed, both empires discovered unexpected benefits from their cooperation. The shared challenge of working within the core's constraints fostered unprecedented levels of technological exchange and cultural understanding. VRYNN crystalline energy systems proved surprisingly compatible with Kelthon plasma technologies when applied to temporal stabilization, leading to breakthroughs that neither side could have achieved alone. This synergy extended beyond pure technology, as researchers from both civilizations found common ground in their approaches to temporal mechanics. Joint research teams developed new methods for detecting and repairing temporal fractures, creating hybrid techniques that combine the best aspects of both empires' scientific traditions. The success of these collaborative efforts gradually eroded centuries of animosity, though old prejudices died hard. Military commanders struggled to adapt to the new paradigm, where former enemies now worked shoulder to shoulder in life-or-death situations. The transition was particularly difficult for frontline units accustomed to viewing the other side as mortal foes. But even they began to recognize the futility of continuing hostilities in the face of a common existential threat. This shift in perspective manifested in surprising ways. Joint celebration of traditional holidays, sharing of cultural practices, and even tentative steps toward economic cooperation in stabilized regions. The transformation wasn't universal or immediate, but it represented a fundamental change in how both civilizations viewed each other. For the first time in centuries, peaceful coexistence seemed not just possible, but necessary for survival. The experience of working together against the temporal instability had forged bonds stronger than any treaty, rooted in shared sacrifice and mutual dependency. The stabilization of Earth's timeline revealed shocking truths about humanity's role in the galactic order. As temporal distortions cleared, researchers discovered evidence of advanced proto-human civilizations dating back millions of years, far predating accepted evolutionary timelines. These ancient humans had apparently mastered rudimentary time travel and played a crucial role in establishing the galaxy's original temporal network. The revelations forced both empires to completely reevaluate their understanding of human potential and Earth's significance. Archaeological expeditions uncovered vast underground complexes containing technology that bridged both VRYNN and Kelthon designs, suggesting a common origin point for their respective civilizations. Genetic analysis revealed traces of engineered DNA sequences in both species that matched patterns found in ancient human remains, implying that humanity might have been the progenitor race for both empires. This discovery created a profound crisis of identity, as cherished creation myths gave way to scientific evidence pointing to a shared ancestry. The implications extended beyond mere historical interest. If humans had once possessed such advanced capabilities, what prevented them from achieving similar heights again? Both empires found themselves torn between fear of a resurgent human civilization and admiration for their ancient achievements. The situation grew more complex as modern humans began exhibiting unusual temporal sensitivities, with some individuals demonstrating innate abilities to perceive and manipulate time flows. These emerging talents suggested that humanity's temporal heritage might be reawakening, potentially upsetting the delicate balance both empires had fought so hard to achieve. The question of how to handle this development became a source of increasing tension between the former adversaries, threatening to reignite their conflict under dramatically altered circumstances. The emergence of human temporal sensitives created a three-way power dynamic that neither the VRYN nor Kelthon had anticipated. These individuals, scattered across Earth's population, began experiencing spontaneous temporal displacements that defied existing scientific understanding. Unlike the carefully controlled temporal operations conducted by both empires, these events occurred naturally and unpredictably, often leaving witnesses with fragmented memories and altered perspectives on reality. More disturbingly, some sensitives demonstrated the ability to influence temporal flows without technological assistance, achieving effects that required massive energy investments from both empires' most advanced equipment. This natural talent posed an existential threat to the fragile peace agreement, as both sides feared losing their hard-won control over temporal mechanics to an uncontrollable variable. The situation reached a crisis point when several sensitives inadvertently created localized time loops that trapped entire cities in repeating 24-hour cycles. Attempts to intervene using conventional temporal stabilization techniques proved ineffective, as the human abilities operated on principles that neither empire fully understood. Researchers from both sides found themselves forced to work directly with these individuals, studying their abilities in hopes of developing countermeasures while simultaneously learning to harness their unique talents. The collaboration produced unexpected results. The sensitive's natural abilities began harmonizing with the Chronos Core's influence, creating stable temporal zones that neither empire's technology could replicate. This development raised uncomfortable questions about whether the core itself might have been designed specifically to interact with human consciousness, suggesting a deeper connection between humanity and the galaxy's temporal infrastructure than anyone had previously suspected. As more sensitives emerged, both empires faced a critical decision: attempt to suppress this phenomenon or embrace it as a new paradigm for temporal management. The integration of human temporal sensitives into the stabilization effort transformed the entire operation, forcing both empires to fundamentally rethink their approach to temporal mechanics. Traditional technological solutions proved increasingly inadequate compared to the organic, intuitive methods employed by the sensitives. Researchers observed that these individuals could navigate temporal currents with a grace and precision that machines couldn't match, often resolving complex temporal anomalies with simple gestures or focused meditation. This realization led to the development of hybrid systems that combined advanced technology with human intuition, creating interfaces that allowed sensitives to direct and amplify their abilities through mechanical augmentation. The success of these systems created new challenges, as both empires competed to recruit and train sensitives, often resorting to questionable ethical practices in their desperation to gain an advantage. Training facilities sprang up across Earth, where sensitives learned to control and refine their abilities under the watchful eyes of VRYN and Kelthon instructors. The process was fraught with difficulties, as many sensitives struggled to reconcile their newfound powers with their normal lives, while others found themselves caught between conflicting loyalties to their human heritage and their adopted mentors. Despite these challenges, the sensitives' contributions proved invaluable, enabling the stabilization team to address temporal instabilities that had previously seemed insurmountable. Their work revealed previously hidden layers of temporal structure, exposing networks of causal relationships that spanned galaxies and epochs. Most significantly, they began uncovering evidence of other temporal nexuses scattered throughout the galaxy, each linked to Earth through complex quantum entanglements that suggested a coordinated design on a galactic scale. This discovery hinted at the existence of a vast, ancient network of temporal control points, with Earth serving as the central hub in a system that might extend far beyond the known universe. The revelation of Earth's role as the central temporal nexus triggered a fundamental shift in both empires' understanding of their place in the cosmos. Detailed analysis of the galactic temporal network revealed patterns suggesting intelligent design on a scale that dwarfed anything either civilization had previously encountered. The mathematical constants governing temporal flow aligned precisely with ratios found in ancient human architecture and art, implying that humanity's ancestors had either created or inherited this system from even older beings. This knowledge forced both the Vryn and Kael'thun to confront the possibility that their entire existence might be part of a larger, predetermined plan. The sensitives' abilities grew more refined and powerful as they learned to interface with this ancient network, sometimes accessing memories and knowledge that couldn't possibly belong to them. These experiences suggested that the temporal network served not just as a regulatory system but as a vast repository of collective consciousness, storing the experiences and wisdom of countless civilizations across time. The implications were staggering. If this system could be fully accessed and understood, it might provide answers to fundamental questions about existence itself. However, attempting to unlock these secrets carried immense risks, as each probe into the network's deeper layers triggered unpredictable temporal fluctuations. The sensitives reported encountering entities that seemed to exist outside normal space-time, beings composed purely of temporal energy that communicated through sensations rather than words. These encounters left lasting impressions on the sensitives' minds, sometimes granting them insights that advanced their abilities dramatically but at the cost of their mental stability. Both empires found themselves walking a fine line between pursuing this knowledge and maintaining the fragile temporal stability they had worked so hard to achieve. The culmination of the joint stabilization effort arrived when the sensitives, working in perfect harmony with both empires' technology, successfully synchronized Earth's temporal network with the galaxy's other nexus points. This achievement created a unified temporal infrastructure that extended beyond the physical boundaries of space-time, revealing glimpses of parallel universes and alternate dimensions. The Vryn and Kael'thun, once bitter enemies, found themselves transformed into custodians of a system far greater than either civilization had imagined. Their centuries-long conflict seemed insignificant against the backdrop of this cosmic revelation. Humanity, through its sensitives, had taken its rightful place as a key component in this grand design, bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern understanding. The experience forged a new relationship between all three species, based not on conquest or competition but on mutual respect and shared responsibility for maintaining the temporal order. As the network stabilized, it began generating excess temporal energy that manifested as opportunities for growth and advancement across all participating civilizations. Technologies once thought impossible became feasible, social barriers dissolved in the face of shared purpose, and new forms of artistic expression emerged from the blending of diverse cultural traditions. The sensitives, now recognized as vital components of the temporal infrastructure, formed a new class of diplomats and mediators, their unique perspective allowing them to resolve conflicts before they could escalate. The galaxy entered a golden age of cooperation and discovery, with Earth serving as both physical and metaphorical center of this new order. Yet the journey was far from over. The temporal network continued to reveal new mysteries, suggesting that even this vast system was but a single thread in an infinite tapestry of existence. As viewers, you've witnessed the beginning of this extraordinary chapter in galactic history. Will you join us on this continuing voyage through time and space? Subscribe now to stay connected with the unfolding story of humanity's destiny among the stars.